everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spill the Marketing Beans. I am so psyched to be talking to our guest today. She's someone who was featured in Forbes 30 Under 30, which is a list I'm a little bit jealous of because it's too late for me. She also founded her own app, which is called Flawless App, and that got acquired, and now she's the head of marketing and community manager at Abstract. So excited to have you on the show today, Lisa.
Hello, super happy to be here and share my knowledge with all of the audience.
Yeah, so Lisa, let's get started. I know I'm very excited to talk to you today because I know we will be kind of getting deep into learning about marketing to developers and all of that. But before we get into any of it, how did your journey start?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started working with engineers like pretty long time and I love it. Actually, I was studying engineering in Ukraine. It was intersection of computer science and automation of chemical plants. It's super geeky. And it was 2018. Somewhere in the time, I met US entrepreneur who sold company to Google, and he was engineer as well. I was working with him in the product marketing, wearing many hats, and the company was very tech savvy, very tech driven. It was a competitor to Magento, providing e-commerce platform and digital transformation services. Back then, it was a new thing in Ukraine, as all online marketing. And after several years working with product marketing with designers and developers, I saw the development workflow was broken. Like for some reason, the designers provide like amazing design, developers spend a ton of times and provide something totally different from design, like two different things. So we wanted to fix that, and I started a company together with my co-founder, Ahmed Suleiman, and we were targeting exactly iOS engineers and UX UI designers. It's called Flawless, and we worked on that for 5 years. Eventually, we sold Flawless to Abstract. It's a 54 million in finding design company. And in Abstract, I was leading SDK direction. It's a software development kit, helping developers to build extensions, integrations with Abstract SDK and make the product stickier. So I work with developers for a pretty long time, and I love working with this audience because developers are very kind, intelligent, they're very structural, they love building, creating. And I just want to tell two stories to showcase developer mindset.
Yeah.
When we had our product development sprints in Flawless, my co-founder, who was CEO and CTO, was putting a paper signed on his table. And I will leave the photo under the video. This paper signed stated coding hours and communication hours. So I come to his table and talk to him only at 11 a.m. or 2 p.m. All another time was for coding, no distraction.
Right.
Yeah, so developers are very structural. They have their own flow. They don't like to be distracted by conversation, emails, banners, and very important marketing messages. And we really have to follow the structure and listen to what's stated on the paper. Another story comes from Flawless users. We run a lot of user interviews, and after each interview we told, hey, if you have any feedback, here's our email, feel free to follow up. And guess what? We were getting 2 pages long emails where developers were telling us how to code your product. Here's the code line. How to fix bugs. I debug it. Here is a bug log for you. Here's UI. I made a design for you. Here's how you should do it. It was really very interesting. And once a person sent us email, I really love your product, but I think it should be open source. So I will code it myself and make it free.
Right.
Wow. Developers audience want to give practical feedback. They need to follow up on that feedback. They open to help community. Sometimes they even want to do it for free and open source, and they expect you to be part of the community. So to summarize, developer audience is amazing. It's really cool, but it's really required a different approach that we used to.
Okay, so I love from the beginning itself, you touched on, how developers are very structural and, how they have a very specific way of working. So which actually leads to this really big question I have. I always felt that marketing to developers or promoting products to developers was a bit of an oxymoron because they don't really like the usual promo things that, us regular folk use, right?
Yeah.
Like product marketers. But is it really that tough? How did you navigate it? I know with Flawless, you managed to, get your first 300 customers without really like spending a lot. So I'm very interested to know how you cracked the code.
Yeah, actually for Flawless, we did most of the marketing without the budget, and we achieved very cool results. We had more than 17,000 users from companies like Uber, Basecamp, Spotify, and Nike. So marketing worked great for us. However, it's really difficult, and it's different from what we used to have, as you mentioned. Firstly, because it's hard to choose the right channel to reach developers, since they're not so active on typical social networks. They are very, very fragmented, so there is no one place where you can find all developers, even when you talk about narrow audience. Second, it's hard to convince them to buy because they have built it mentality, and they would rather search for open source solution or spend a month to build it because it's fun and cool and interesting, rather than pay you $50 for a license. Also, they feel very uncomfortable with bureaucracy and procurement process. So it's hard for them to go to engineering manager, CTO, and ask for a budget to buy the solution. Third reason, it's hard to craft messaging and positioning that will speak to developers' heart, because you need to have a deep technical understanding of their problem and ability to translate that problem from feature set, from pure functionality to positioning and to value. And it's hard to do when you don't understand.
Yeah.
And the last reason is, while developer community is very open and welcoming, you can be an outsider. If you do your marketing, your community building efforts, everything you're doing, you should have trust. And if they don't know you, they won't trust you. They won't read your content, they won't invite you as a speaker, they won't listen to you, they will keep you outside. And taking all of those things in consideration, marketing for developers should be based on 3 key principles. First one, it's a very specific user segmentation. Second one, it's a very clear, direct positioning. And third one, it's a really developer-focused marketing strategy. If you want, we can dive really deep in all of those 3 topics.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. So one thing that really stood out to me was that whole trust part, how that establishing that with developers is very important. I really like it. I mean, if we can actually dive into those, 3 principles that you mentioned, like the segmentation and all of those things.
Yeah, sure. And I will start with user segmentation because, it's hard to target developers, and your product marketing and UX team should work really hard on your user research as the first step of development marketing strategy. Segmentation comes to deep understanding of your users, and it's not just like we are targeting developers. Developers are like a very general term, like marketers, But for targeting, you need to understand what programming languages they're using. For case of Flawless, iOS developers use Objective-C, Swift, and later Swift UI. But when you think deeper, those developers who work on legacy app, those ones which is not supported anymore, those app has Objective-C, and this app is not updated often, while developers who use on new apps use Swift and Swift UI. And they have a lot of changes in UI, in design, and we're targeting those who have changes in UI. So even within the same landscape, you can target a sub-language like we did. It was Swift UI for us. Another thing you need to consider is what platforms they're working on. It could be mobile, it could be iOS, Android, it could be native apps like macOS, or it could be cross-functional apps when you use one language or like one framework to write apps for iOS and for Android, for example, Flutter or React Native. And those are very different audience because they read different blogs, they follow different leaders, while they have the same title, mobile developer, iOS developer, but he's cross-functional developer. You want to reach him in iOS community for Swift UI, for example.
Yeah.
Also, it could be no-code developers. It sounds strange, but someone can do a a mobile app from spreadsheet in 3 weeks. And he's considered as mobile developer. And he might have the same title, mobile developer. But he's following no-code community. He's using another tools. He's going to no-code conferences. He's just totally different persona with the same title, mobile developer. Developers can work on user interface, basically doing design from the designer. Also, they can work on logic, like how it works under the hood, algorithms, etc. And those are two different personas. For Flawless, we targeted developers who were making changes to UI, because our product allowed to compare what designers did with what developer created inside development environment. So it's a pure design, and we're supposed to figure out, is this like iOS developer who is working with Swift UI? Okay, he's not cross-functional. He's not no-code developer. He's working on UI. How could he figure that? How could we understood that he's the specific type? It's really hard, because otherwise he won't use our solution. Also, developers, they might have different workflow. Sometimes release process is 1 week, it's called, like, let's say a release train, whatever you did, you put to the release. They might have an agile process of 2-week sprints. So after 2 weeks, something is go to production. Or they might have a release process of 1 year. And for Flawless, we need to have someone who releases very often. We can't target someone who releases on, let's say, a big application once per year. And it's really very different targeting. The same persona, iOS developer, same language, same communities, but just different development process. And yes, it changed everything. Also, it comes to company culture. For some companies, they have like design-driven culture, design-first approaches, customer-centric, and they care about visual design. And others care about ship it fast, ship it simple, just a production.
Yeah.
And even different on those cultures, which is developer in working in, he might make different decisions. And you need to target those for us who focus on customer first, on quality, and on developing something for users. Those characteristics can be different for developers' persona, but having all of them will allow to target users right and just not to waste marketing budget. And it's really hard.
Yeah.
Another hard point when we talk about marketing developers and which we need to consider is working on positioning. We all know it's important, but positioning for developers, it's totally different. No fluffy, no fuzzy words, no big claims, no promises, no magical mission, unless you're Apple, you know. Probably, well, it's important we all think about a mission, value, big pain we will solve, and all of those big things when we think about positioning to make it wide, broad, and just super meaningful for us and for our users. But developers are different. They came to your website to find some specific thing like documentation, changelog, SDK, webhooks, way to solve their issue. Try it. If they like the trial, download it and go to the working process. Finish their task today, close the task in Jira, move to the next task.
Exactly.
Super clear and straightforward. Developers are like problem solvers, and your positioning and messaging should address solving their problem, even if it sounds like basic and not very fancy, but that's how it should be.
Yeah.
You know, when I was leading abstract direction, SDK direction of abstract, we start with deep user research, and we figured out that all of the job stories, like why people hired SDK, were task-based. So developer figured out there is some problem while working within our tool and his workflow, and he wanted to solve this problem. For example, every time design is changed, his team would love to get notification the design is changed, so everyone would be in the same page, and it should happen in Slack. Yeah. So this is a typical job story, and everything our user persona cares about is, can he do this? Or can she do this? It's a case study, and how she or he can do this. It's a documentation. That's all. Super fast. So our positioning was about those job stories. We promised increased design impact with Abstract SDK. It was our company mission and helped users. And our headline was a universal JavaScript and Swift framework to build on top of Abstract to integrate with your favorite tools.
Okay.
Just start the building.
Right.
Simple, clear, to the point.
Clear.
That's how you should think about positioning. And when we go to the last piece and think about marketing strategy, it should be based on building trust, supporting transparency, respecting developers' workflow, and empowering community. Those principles should go in all marketing functions, in product marketing, content, socials, lifecycle marketing, even to paid. And it can be as granular or special developer relationship function. If you want, we can just dive deeper in those core things of marketing strategy.
Yeah, actually, that is something that I'm curious about, and I did, want to ask you. And I really like how you touched on how that segmentation was so important. We group every developer as one, but there's so many of them, and also getting that messaging right. And also, like, the next question I also had was, Lisa, to get into what really worked.
When we talk about building trust, it means that what your brand promise are meeting functionality. And we as some marketing people sometimes can, overpromise it a little bit.
Yeah.
That doesn't work with developers. Your marketing message should be clear, straight to the point, because developers will spot it immediately. If you promise it will work and save them 5 hours, and it didn't work and it didn't save them 5 hours, they will leave you a very long review with, it didn't work, you promised, here is how to fix it. And you will need to follow up. So it's really important. Your email communication should be honest. Really, it's about building trust. You can't have manipulative call to actions. Let's say today is the last day to get this offer. Because
so guilty of doing that.
She will get this email in a week and she'll be like, yes, but I remember I put a task for myself to extend this offer. I did it. So how could it be? And it's really destroyed us. Those marketing tactics should be avoided. Developers are very analytical, very smart. They don't like to feel like someone is trying to fool them. Another important principle is supporting transparency. It means that you don't hide your intention. It comes to all marketing communication, event marketing, sponsoring, content, user interviews, and even sales demos. Also, it comes to having open roadmap, which a lot of development companies has, having feature voting when developers can vote what they want you to build, and you actually build it based on what users want, not what your business needs, or that should be aligned. Also, it comes to open Ask Me Anything session, where engineers are answering on some tricky things about building or implementing or next feature releases. Developers have a very clear roadmap of what should happen. It's like their mindset. You have a roadmap in a product, you should have a roadmap in life. And they should understand that if you promise them some specific action, that it will happen. It will be understandable flow. Let's go. It works like with programming. You run a line of code, you make an input, you get an output. It's transparent. Just very real example, which I was guilty of. When you create a cool content, like 50 interview questions to get engineering manager role, and you put a Facebook ad, and developers like, wow, I need that. I want to read quickly or quickly. Open a landing page and baba, a big gated content. Leave your email and you'll get 50 questions and answers. And developers like, but you promised me questions and answers. Why should I leave an email?
Yeah.
Well, it's a big no-no. It's not transparent at all. Another example, which I'm guilty of, is inviting developers for a user interview session and having a sales demo. And trying to close the deal while you ask for feedback, but your intention was to sell the product. And you can't really do that. It doesn't work, and it destroys trust, and it destroys your transparency. Well, but we learn on our mistakes.
Yeah.
Another super important principle is respecting developers' workload. And I want to just talk about it a bit deeper here. There are a lot of jokes. So developers don't read emails, or developers don't like talking. So that's all biases, but there is some logic in that. Just think for a moment. When you're a developer and you're investing a huge mental power to solve some task. Let's say you're in a mental mood, mental flow. You almost figure that bug. You almost figure how to solve it. You almost have written that line. You just almost, and boom! Oh, someone followed you on LinkedIn. Someone messaged you. Oh, your trial will end in 3 days. Hey, can you talk with the user? And this whole mental flow, the whole work the developer made in her or his head just flowed away. It's like boom. It's really horrible, and everything what the developer will feel in that moment will be hate and disappointment. Okay, I need to start over. And it's super important when you think about your go-to-market strategy, about increasing your product usage and adoption. Email marketing, it should respect developers' workflow. It should be timely, relevant, and not pushy. It's not like we used to, okay, we will get 5 emails and after the 6th email, I will extend the trial. No, no, it doesn't work. And the last piece of core things for marketing strategy is about community building and empowering the community. Developers are huge believer in supporting each other, in sharing knowledge for free, in helping everyone to start in tech industry without spending money on it. It's a community when you can post your code on Stack Overflow and someone will help you, someone will solve your problem. And as a company, you should nurture those community among your users. Create those people, support them with the value you can give in all possible formats. And also you should communicate with community leaders in the space, those who establish trust. You should be on development platform with community like GitHub or Stack Overflow, on sub-communities like Twitter or Reddit, and even local meetups, let's say Women Who Code, or for iOS, it's Cocoa Heads community, which is local in every region. And that was a big part of strategy for Flawless and for Abstract, because without community, you won't be able to have a success.